Have you ever stared at your phone, wondering how someone can feel so close to you and yet feel so far away at the same time? One moment, the connection feels real, deep, almost unbreakable. And the next moment, there is silence, distance, a cold space where warmth used to live. If you have ever felt confused, doubted yourself, or questioned your worth because of this, stay here. Watch this till the end. Because by the end of this video, you will understand something that can change how you see love, silence, and yourself forever. That silence you feel is not just quiet. It is loud. It talks to your fears. It activates the deepest part of the human brain that is wired for survival. The part that asks, am I being abandoned? Did I do something wrong? Am I not enough? Psychology shows that uncertainty hurts more than rejection, because rejection ends the story, but uncertainty keeps your mind trapped in a loop. And avoidant behavior is built on uncertainty. They pull back without explanation. They go quiet without warning, and your nervous system reacts before your logic does. Here is the truth most people never hear. Not all distance is disinterest. Not all silence means the absence of love. Sometimes silence is a signal of internal conflict, especially for avoidant personalities. When emotions get intense, their mind does not say, move closer. It says, protect yourself. So they retreat, not because they don't care, but because they care more than they know how to handle. Human psychology teaches us that love feels safe only when the nervous system feels safe. For avoidance, closeness can feel like danger. Intimacy triggers memories they may not even consciously remember. Loss of control, emotional overwhelm, past disappointments. So when feelings grow, their instinct is not to lean in. Their instinct is to shut down, to create space, to breathe again, and to regain control over their inner world. This is where most people misunderstand the situation. They see distance and assume rejection. They see silence and assume replacement. They see withdrawal and assume indifference. But psychology tells a different story. Avoidants often pull away when the bond becomes meaningful, when the emotional weight becomes real, when the risk of loss increases. Love, to them, does not feel like comfort. It feels like vulnerability. And vulnerability feels unsafe. Think about this carefully. People rarely run away from what means nothing. They run away from what has the power to hurt them. Silence, in this case, is not emptiness. It is protection. It is a defense mechanism formed long before you ever entered their life. A pattern learned when expressing needs felt dangerous, when depending on others led to disappointment, when love felt unreliable. This does not mean you should ignore your pain. Your confusion is valid. Your emotions matter. But understanding the psychology behind their behavior gives you power. Power over your reactions. Power over your self-worth. Power over the story you tell yourself when things go quiet. Because the most damaging thing you can do is turn someone else's emotional limitation into evidence that you are unlovable. Motivational psychology teaches this clearly. People with strong self-worth do not chase answers in silence. They do not beg for clarity from emotionally overwhelmed people. They observe, they stay grounded, they remain calm, because emotional stability sends a powerful signal. It says, I am safe with myself. And safety is the language avoidants understand best. When an avoidant goes quiet, your reaction matters more than their action. Panic creates pressure. Pressure increases their fear. Fear deepens their withdrawal. But calm does something different. Calm slows the nervous system. Calm removes threat. Calm gives space without resentment. And that space feels different to an avoidant. It feels safe. It feels respectful. It feels non-demanding. Here is something few people realize. Avoidants test love through distance. They pull back to see if the connection survives without control, without chasing, without emotional chaos. When you remain steady, when you don't collapse into fear, you send a message deeper than words. You say, I am not here to trap you. I am here because I choose you. And this is important. Silence becomes meaningful only when paired with return. Avoidants often come back, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, slowly, testing the emotional temperature, checking if safety still exists, if you are still emotionally regulated, if the connection still feels calm. That return is not accidental, it is intentional. It means the bond mattered enough to revisit. Stay till the end of this video, because what comes next will help you recognize the subtle signs that avoidants show when love is real, even when words are missing. You will learn how to protect your self-respect while understanding their behavior. And more importantly, you will learn how to stay emotionally powerful in situations that once made you feel small. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to pull away just when things feel real? Why the closer you get, the more they retreat? It's not about you, it's about how their mind responds to intense emotions. The avoidant attachment style is rooted in the way they process love, fear, and connection. Their nervous system reacts differently than most. When love grows, it triggers anxiety rather than comfort. It's like their body and mind are in conflict. Part of them wants to be close, but another part screams for safety. Understanding this conflict is the key to seeing their love clearly. When an avoidant feels attachment, their instinct is not to express it in ways society expects. They are wired to protect themselves. Their emotional radar detects closeness as a potential threat. The deeper the bond, the more unpredictable their reactions can feel. One day they may seem fully present, attentive, and warm. The next, they may create space, pull back, or appear emotionally distant. It feels contradictory because it is. Love to them is not a smooth feeling. It is intense, messy, and often overwhelming. Psychology shows that avoidants often struggle with trust at a very deep level. It's not a choice, it's a survival pattern. In childhood or through past experiences, dependence on others may have brought disappointment, pain, or instability. As a result, their adult mind develops strategies to maintain connection while minimizing perceived risk. Distance becomes a tool. Withdrawal becomes a strategy to protect themselves from being hurt. And yet, paradoxically, the very people who pull away the most often feel love more intensely than they show. It's easy to misinterpret avoidance as indifference, but think carefully. Avoidants rarely step back from things that hold no value. They step back from things they fear losing. They step back from what matters deeply. Their withdrawal is not rejection. It is a way to cope with the intensity of their feelings. Their mind is signaling, I care too much, and I don't know how to handle it. This is where most misunderstandings happen. People see absence and conclude they are unwanted, but absence, in this case, can be a sign of hidden care, deep thought, and internal struggle. Every interaction with an avoidant carries layers of meaning beneath the surface. When they return after a period of distance, when they check in quietly, or when they remember something small you mentioned weeks ago, it is their way of showing love without threatening their inner safety. Their affection is subtle because overt displays feel risky. They may avoid words like, I love you, or gestures that demand vulnerability. Instead, they show loyalty through presence in times of need, consistency in small actions, and attention to details that reveal they notice more than they say. One of the most powerful things to understand is that avoidance does not equal rejection, and silence does not equal apathy. In fact, their mind often works in reverse. The closer you feel to them, the more their instinct is to retreat. When you try to pull them closer, pressure increases. Pressure activates their fear. Fear leads to withdrawal. But if you remain calm, if you regulate your own emotions, and if you allow space, something remarkable happens. They start to trust without fear. They begin to approach without pressure. Their love grows quietly but powerfully. Avoidants are deeply sensitive to emotional chaos. Panic, anger, or desperation signals danger. Calmness, patience, and emotional stability signal safety. This is why your own emotional strength is more attractive to them than chasing or demanding clarity. When you show that your self-worth does not depend on their immediate response, when you demonstrate calm in the face of uncertainty, you send a message louder than words. You are safe to love, and love can exist without fear. It's important to recognize that love does not always need to be spoken to be felt. Avoidants communicate differently, through actions rather than words. Returning after absence, checking in at critical moments, protecting you in ways that are invisible to most eyes. This form of love is quiet, but it is powerful. It is consistent, not dramatic. It is present, even when unseen. And once you learn to see it, you stop confusing distance with rejection and begin to appreciate the depth behind every measured step they take toward you. This understanding also transforms how you react. Instead of panicking at their withdrawal, instead of overanalyzing every text, you start to observe patterns. You notice their subtle efforts. You notice the way they care in their own way. And you realize that emotional patience is not waiting for love. It is recognizing it when it is expressed differently than expected. This awareness brings peace. It gives clarity. And it strengthens your own emotional foundation. Here is what psychology teaches. Avoidant love is often masked by fear. The fear of losing independence, the fear of being overwhelmed, the fear of vulnerability. But within that fear is love that is cautious, yet genuine. Their retreat is temporary, but their return is intentional. Their words may be few, but their actions are meaningful. And once you learn to interpret these signals correctly, you stop taking silence personally, stop doubting your worth, and start recognizing that love comes in many forms, even the quietest ones. When you start seeing love this way, you unlock a new kind of emotional intelligence. You stop chasing, you stop pleading, and you stop shrinking to fit someone else's fears. Instead, you observe, you remain grounded, and you respond with calm clarity. You realize that love is not about controlling or demanding it. Love is about understanding, patience, and respecting the patterns of the heart. And in the case of an avoidant, this approach not only protects your emotional strength, but allows their love to emerge naturally, without pressure or fear. The closer you understand avoidant behavior, the more you see that love is always present, even when it hides behind distance. They care, they notice, they protect, they return, and their love, though subtle, is real and lasting. Have you ever wished love came with a label, a sign, or a guarantee? Something you could see and hold to feel certain it's real? For someone with an avoidant heart, love doesn't usually arrive with bold words or dramatic gestures. It is quieter, slower, and harder to read. But it is present, persistent, and sincere. Avoidants may not say what you want to hear, but their care is often hidden in their choices, their consistency, and their subtle attention to your life. Understanding this is like discovering a secret language of love, a language that speaks directly to the heart without noise or pressure. One of the first signs of avoidant love is returning without explanation. They may pull away, but eventually they come back. Not because they have no fear, not because they are casual, but because love draws them back, even when their mind resists it. That return is intentional. It shows that no matter how far they go, connection matters more than distance. It proves that love can exist quietly, even in moments of absence. Watching for these returns allows you to see devotion beyond words, and patience becomes your bridge to understanding. Another sign is remembering small details about your life, even when they seem distracted or detached. Avoidants may not express affection loudly, but they notice patterns, preferences, and moments that matter to you. Remembering your favorite book, checking in at times they know are hard for you, or recalling something you once casually mentioned. All of this is their way of saying, "You are important to me." It may not feel like traditional love, but it is proof of attentiveness, thought, and quiet care. Avoidants often show love through protective actions rather than emotional declarations. They may not sit and confess feelings, but they demonstrate care in subtle ways, helping when needed, offering support during challenges, or simply showing up when others might not. Their love is practical, steady, and understated. They act on concern rather than emotion, and this is a powerful signal. It shows that even when words are missing, actions carry the weight of their heart. Consistency, even in small doses, is another unmistakable indicator. Avoidants may not be expressive, but they often maintain patterns that reflect loyalty. Whether it's checking in occasionally, following through on commitments, or respecting your boundaries while staying connected, their steadiness proves a silent truth. They are choosing you, even when it is uncomfortable. Their love is measured, cautious, and deliberate, but real. It's also important to recognize the subtle ways they invest emotionally without overwhelming themselves. Avoidants often compartmentalize their feelings to manage fear. They may not pour out emotions in long conversations or dramatic moments. Instead, they express love by creating safe spaces, allowing you to be yourself, and engaging when they feel capable of being present. This form of care is protective, not absent. It shows a desire to nurture the connection without triggering their own anxiety. Avoidants also show loyalty in the face of challenges. When difficulties arise, they may not react with words, but they do not abandon the connection. They navigate conflict carefully, avoiding chaos but remaining engaged. This measured approach demonstrates respect and commitment. They value the bond enough to approach it cautiously rather than destroying it impulsively. Love for them is about sustaining connection over time, not about dramatic expressions in a single moment. One of the most profound signs is their return to conversation after distance. Silence for an avoidant is often a protective pause, not a rejection. When they reach out again, even without apology, it signals care and attention. It proves that despite fear or discomfort, the relationship matters. Understanding this rhythm, pulling back, then reconnecting, helps you interpret their love correctly. It's a pattern that communicates depth, persistence, and intentionality. Avoidant love is also expressed through subtle validation of your existence and feelings. They may not offer constant reassurance, but when you are struggling, they notice. They may offer help, listen quietly, or respect your boundaries in ways that show recognition of your emotions. It is a form of acknowledgement that is often overlooked, yet it reflects deep attentiveness. Their care is not loud. It is present, thoughtful, and sincere. Recognizing these signs transforms the way you experience relationships. Instead of questioning their presence or interpreting distance as rejection, you begin to see patterns of care. You learn to differentiate between fear-driven withdrawal and indifference. You stop doubting your worth and start appreciating the quiet ways someone can demonstrate commitment. You realize that love does not always demand words, grand gestures, or constant presence to be meaningful. Sometimes the depth of feeling is revealed in the pauses, in the subtle actions, and in the return after absence. It is also vital to understand that love and fear coexist for avoidance. Their hesitation does not mean lack of affection. Their restraint does not indicate a lack of choice. Their careful approach is a reflection of the intensity of their emotions. When they choose to act, to return, to support, or to notice, it is deliberate. It is proof that despite internal struggles, love guides their actions. Recognizing this requires patience, awareness, and a perspective that values subtlety over spectacle. Understanding these signs does more than reveal their feelings. It empowers you. You stop seeking validation in ways that trigger their fear. You begin to protect your emotional boundaries while appreciating the care that exists. You recognize that connection grows not through chasing, but through presence, patience, and respect. And when you grasp this, love transforms from a source of anxiety into a force that nurtures confidence, understanding, and emotional clarity. Avoidant love may not always look like romance in movies. It may not always sound like poetry, but it exists in moments of quiet attention, measured return, thoughtful actions, and consistent presence. It is hidden in patience, reflected in subtle gestures, and anchored in the courage to stay connected even when fear threatens to push away. Learning to see these signals allows you to appreciate the depth of affection that is often overlooked. When you recognize these signs, you begin to view the relationship differently. You stop misinterpreting distance as lack of care. You stop doubting your worth when they withdraw. You start seeing love in the rhythm of engagement, withdrawal, and return. You understand that real connection is often quiet, steady, and intentional. And this understanding shifts your perspective, strengthens your emotional resilience, and allows you to experience love without fear, confusion, or neediness. When love feels complicated, it can shake your sense of self, especially with someone who retreats, returns, and expresses care in quiet ways. It is easy to feel uncertain or even unworthy. But the truth is this: your value is never dependent on someone else's ability to express affection. Understanding the dynamics of avoidant love is not just about recognizing their behavior. It is about reclaiming your power, protecting your self-respect, and embracing emotional strength. When you do this, you stop shrinking to fit another person's fears and begin to stand tall in your own light. One of the most important lessons in loving an avoidant is learning not to chase what naturally seeks space. The harder you pull, the more they resist. This is not rejection, it is biology. Their nervous system associates intensity with threat. But when you remain grounded, your stability communicates safety. Calmness becomes magnetic. Patience becomes attractive. Emotional pressure fades, and love grows quietly but steadily. The secret is not to force closeness. It is to maintain your own center while allowing the connection to breathe. Emotional boundaries are your most powerful tool. Avoidants need space, and that need does not diminish their feelings. Respecting their boundaries does not make you less loved. It makes your relationship stronger. When you stop overextending yourself to fill the gaps of their fear, you protect your energy, maintain dignity, and cultivate resilience. Strong boundaries create a foundation where love can exist without chaos, and respect becomes the invisible glue holding the connection together. Another essential aspect is embracing patience without losing self-worth. Many people feel tempted to demand reassurance or explanations, but true empowerment comes from observing without reacting impulsively. When you can tolerate uncertainty without panic, you demonstrate emotional maturity. Your steadiness becomes a mirror that reflects the stability they often cannot generate on their own. Love, in this context, is not about constant affirmation. It is about presence, awareness, and the quiet power of emotional control. You also need to recognize the difference between validation and control. Your feelings deserve acknowledgement, but attempting to control someone else's responses rarely works with avoidance. They retreat from pressure, not affection. By focusing on your own emotional regulation instead of manipulating theirs, you create a space where connection can unfold naturally. Empowerment comes from choosing how you respond, rather than reacting to every withdrawal or silence. You choose calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, and strength over fear. Self-respect is key to navigating avoidant love. It is easy to feel small when love feels inconsistent, but your self-worth is not measured by their presence, attention, or approval. When you internalize this, you stop equating absence with rejection. You stop measuring your value based on someone else's ability to express feelings. You stand firm in knowing that your love, patience, and integrity have intrinsic power. The more grounded you become, the more your confidence radiates, creating a safe and attractive environment even for someone who fears intimacy. Another element of empowerment is observing without needing immediate answers. Avoidants often operate on a different emotional timeline. They may process feelings slowly, act cautiously, and return unpredictably. By learning to detach from the need for instant reassurance, you strengthen your resilience. You stop giving away your peace for temporary uncertainty. You honor your own emotional rhythm while respecting theirs. This balance allows love to flourish without pressure, without panic, and without compromise to your dignity. Psychology teaches that emotional strength is contagious. Avoidants often respond not to words, but to energy. When your presence is calm, grounded, and secure, it signals safety. When your love is steady, measured, and respectful, it becomes easier for them to lean in without fear. The more you cultivate patience, stability, and self-awareness, the more your connection grows naturally. This is not manipulation. It is understanding human behavior, creating conditions where love can survive and thrive. It is also vital to let go of unrealistic expectations. Avoidants rarely fit the traditional mold of constant verbal affirmation or visible emotional displays. Expecting that can lead to frustration, resentment, or self-doubt. Instead, focus on the patterns of care that exist, the subtle returns, thoughtful gestures, protective actions, and quiet attention. Appreciating these signals shifts your perspective. You stop chasing illusions of perfection and start valuing authentic, imperfect love. This clarity strengthens your confidence and allows you to experience connection without unnecessary suffering. Empowerment also comes from focusing on your growth and purpose. When you prioritize your life, passions, and self-improvement, you generate energy that attracts rather than repels. Avoidants respect people who are emotionally independent. Your focus on yourself communicates that love is not about neediness, control, or dependency. It is about choice. This mindset creates a space where both parties can feel secure, connected, and free from fear-driven behaviors. Finally, the most transformative lesson is this: loving someone with avoidant tendencies does not diminish your worth. Their patterns reflect fear, not your value. Your patience, clarity, and emotional strength transform uncertainty into trust, absence into presence, and fear into quiet love. You learn to navigate complexity with dignity, to protect your peace, and to recognize love even when it comes quietly. By embracing your own power, you create a relationship rooted in understanding rather than pressure. You learn that real love is not about controlling outcomes, but about mastering your response. You discover that boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges. And you realize that patience, awareness, and self-respect are the tools that allow love to exist fully, deeply, and without compromise to your dignity. In the end, loving an avoidant teaches a profound truth. True emotional strength comes from within. It comes from knowing your worth, maintaining your stability, and appreciating love in all its quiet, subtle forms. When you apply these principles, you do not just survive the challenges of avoidance, you thrive in them. You become unshakable, confident, and capable of receiving love in the way it was meant to be experienced, deeply, patiently, and fully.